Hello Year 11 and welcome to this basic guide to English Language GCSE Paper 1, the fiction text. Now, first of all, when you get in the exam hall, there you are sat there, the first thing I would recommend you do basically take a deep breath and don't panic. There's absolutely no need to. Think about the steps we're going to go through today. You'll have a good method there. Follow that and you'll be absolutely fine. The next thing you need to think about are your timings. So my advice would be that next you need to jot down the start time of the paper. So you've got that in front of you. That should be written up, but anyway, have it there in front of you. And that's when you begin your reading time. Now you have 15 minutes as a maximum for your reading time. Altogether for section A, you have 1 hour, which means by 10, so an hour later in this example, you need to be starting section B, the creative writing. Now, you have 15 minutes available to you for reading time to go through the questions and the insert. So if you write down 9:15 there, or 15 minutes after whatever time you do start, then that is when you must begin question 1. Your advice from your teachers may vary slightly on the timings for the following questions, but these are what I would give you as a guide for maximum. So if you allow yourself 5 minutes as a maximum for question 1, that means obviously by 9:20 you need to be starting question 2. And again, timings may vary on what you're told, but I would say as a maximum for question 2, you'd be looking at another 10 minutes. So 10 minutes for question 2, at which point you need to start question 3. Finally, another 10 minutes for question 3, which means at 9:40, you need to be starting question 4. Now that's very important because you want to allow yourself that 20-minute window for you to complete question 4 at least. Remember, that's a 20-mark question and we'll come to that later, but it's most important you get started at that to allow yourself enough time to spend on question 4. Okay, once you've done that and you're happy with your timings, you know what you need to do, then you need to start your reading. And I would suggest that the first thing you do is look at the questions. So before you look at the actual insert itself with the text on, start with your questions. So read through question 1, question 2, question 3 and question 4 and so on. Have a read through those before you look at the actual text itself, because that will give you a lot of clues about what you need to look for and will enable you to read far more actively. Then turn over to the insert, and first of all, before you open that up, have a look, because you will have clues really to help you on the front of there. So you're going to have the date roughly of this particular text, so certainly which century it was published in, which will help you understand whether it's more archaic or older text or a more modern text, which it is in this case. It'll give you the title as well, which will really help you, or may really help you in terms of understanding it. And it will also give you usually the genre, so the type of writing it involves. And in this case, it is modern fantasy and fairy tales. So that may help you in helping you to understand the text itself, because if you know the conventions, the things you normally expect to find in that kind of writing, that will help you. Then you need to get into the text itself and start reading. Now, if you've got the questions in your head and you've started to think about those, you can do some very active reading at this point, and you can straight away begin to annotate and make notes. Now, I would advise, as you can see here, that you have a ruler handy and a highlighter for you to use. You can use a coloured pen if that's easier for you, but just make sure you don't use anything that's going to obscure the text for you so that you can still see it clearly. Read this at the top, because there will be a small box there for you to look at, which will have clues there about the text. Will give you a sort of shortened synopsis of the story, if you like, or some background to the story and whereabouts in the text this is, which again can help you with understanding and with the structure question 3. So read it through carefully. If you've got question 1 in mind, and in this case it's about the boy, information on the boy, this first line I can see here already gives me an answer to one of my question 1s. The boy was crouched on top of the mound. Well, if I highlight there, I know straight away that's going to give me information for question 1. part of the text, part of the question paper rather. So as you go through, be actively looking, and you might also want to look for interesting words, use certain uses of information as you're reading through, and pick out any of those as you're going along. So for example, I can see a list of verbs used here describing how the boys play. Now I know that the second question, because I've read them, asks about the boy playing, so I can highlight some of those verbs immediately and be thinking about that question too. So these are verbs that are being used here, so that will help me answer question 2. So as you read through, continue to do that, highlight, make notes in the margin, and really think about how you can already start answering the questions here. Once you've done that and you're happy you've got enough information out of that, and making sure again obviously that you check your timing, so double check you don't go over, make sure you're starting within the 15 minutes for your question 1, you can start on the question 1. Importantly for question 1, and this you need to remember, this is a simple, easy question. This Year 11 is your gift from the exam board. Please don't throw it away. Use it wisely. Whatever you do, don't overcomplicate it. There's no need to. It is not an analysis question. It is not an explanation that is required. It is simply 4 bits of information relating to the focus of this question. So use your time wisely. You want to use short sentences and find the information. You only need 4 points, that's all. And as I said, you don't need to explain. All you have to do is find the information. So fill those in. Now, if you're working through a question paper at the moment, you might want to pause it now and have a go at that question 1 before you continue. Now to question 2. Now, question 2, and importantly to remember here, is the language question. So this is where your analysis comes to play. This is where you do need to explain and you are analysing language. Most importantly, what you need to do here is read the question carefully. If you look at this part here, it asks you specifically here, your question. Make sure you read that carefully, and very kindly they give you some options, the kind of things that you can look for. So use those, don't throw that away. Use those to help you. Words and phrases, language features and techniques, sentence forms. So use that to help you. Very helpfully as well, they kindly print the text that you need to refer to here at the top of the paper. There's no excuse there, is there? It's there in front of you. Now, if you have made notes, which hopefully you have, you can still turn back to your text at this point and look at any notes you might have made that are relevant to this particular excerpt. But again, you can write on here again as you go and create a sort of mini plan, if you like, for your answer. You want to be aiming to make 2 or 3 really good points, detailed points. So think paragraphs here to explain particular quotations. So 2 to 3 good points. And you need to make sure here that you use some terminology if you can. So things like verbs, metaphors, similes, repetition, and so on. Any other things that you spot, particular groups of words, type of words, phrases that you notice that obviously relate back to the question. The exam board ultimately wants depth. So importantly here, what you need to do is write a lot about a little. Not great big long quotations, but instead short, precise quotations which you explain in detail where you can using terminology. And importantly, and this is something quite often forgot, you need to think about and talk about the effect of that language as well. So what's the effect of those language choices made by the writer on the reader? So that's question 2. Now, if you are going through the paper, again, you might want to pause here and have a go, maybe make some notes and have a go at question 2. You have 10 minutes to complete that question. Next we have question 3. Now question 3 is the structure question. So this is all about structure, and importantly for this one, you are looking, and it's the only question that gets you to do this, at the whole of the source. All of the other questions don't ask you to do that. Now again, you have a maximum of 10 minutes for this question. Looking at the whole of the source, it will tell you whereabouts in the story this is, which may help you in terms of writing this. So this is from the middle of a story. It also, the question here, how's the text structured to interest you as a reader? And it gives you suggestions. So again, use these to help you. Think about what it's asking you to do, what the writer focuses your attention on in the beginning, how and why the writer changes this focus as the source develops. So make sure you use those to help you as a guide. For this one, again, you want to be writing 2 to 3 good points, as in the last question. Again, it's for 10 points. So use those for 2 of you. Those could be 2 paragraphs. So what's focused on the beginning and how that focus or mood might change. And finally, a paragraph and anything else you notice in terms of structure that you can pick out. Now, there are loads of options here for the sorts of things you could focus on and talk about. But it's generally changes. So, for example, change in the focus of the text, or the perspective, the viewpoint of the text, changes in the mood of the text. A change, for example, to dialogue from description, or the other way around. Changes in the sentences or style of sentences, types of sentences. Does it go suddenly to short sentences, etc., or to long descriptive sentences? Are there any flashbacks or changes in the time or jumps forward, for example? So those are all the kind of changes and things that you could look for. Now, if you're having a go at question 3, you might want to try that to pause for a second and actually have a go at this one. Just one final point here as well, that all these points should relate to the effects, because remember, the reader is focused prominently in the question. So you must talk about the effect of these changes. How do they interest the reader? It is no good just listing them. You must talk about their effect. So if you want to now and have a short pause, you can have a go at a question 3 or make some notes. Now, last but not least is question 4. Particularly important question, but this is you should have, if you've got your timings right, and this is where you do want to double check you've still got your 20 minutes. If you've saved any extra time up, then this is the question I would recommend you use this on. So you get 20 marks for this one, and you should have a minimum of 20 minutes to answer this question. Now, importantly, this question is what we would call evaluation. It's about you evaluating, in terms of a particular statement, how far you agree with it. Now, again, be careful with this one because it will ask you to focus on a particular part of the text. Now, in this case, it says of the source from line 16 to the end, and it usually is the further sort of end part of the text, but make sure you're careful with that. You will not get marked if you focus your answer on earlier parts of the text. And importantly, the real thing you must look at carefully is the statement aspect of this question. So there will be a statement here, and it will tell you that somebody, in this case it's a reviewer, has written a comment about this part of the text. So in this case it says this end part of the extract is where the boys' game comes to life and takes a darker, more chilling tone. To what extent do you agree? Now this is where your evaluation comes in. To what extent do you agree? How far do you agree with that statement? Your whole answer must be based around those. Okay, don't fall into the trap of just telling us about the story. Ensure you're answering that question throughout. And it gives you clues. Again, use those to help you. Consider your own impression in this case of the boys' game, evaluate how the writer creates a dark and chilling tone. So this is mentioned here, a dark and chilling tone. So how does the writer create that dark and chilling tone? What methods does the writer use? Now that could be all kinds of things. Methods could fall into several categories, and it might be to do with structure, it might be to do with language, but somewhere you should be able to find evidence of that dark and chilling tone and use that. And you have to say how far you agree that that is what's happening. So ensure that you're focused on that, and you have to use some quotations here as well. Now, I would suggest for this one, with it being 20 minutes, you're looking for 4 to 5 points here. So 4 to 5 really good paragraphs that make it clear whether you agree. Whether you agree or not is up to you. Certainly our advice would be the text will be largely aimed to allow you to agree. If you're going to disagree at some point, and perhaps you may have some paragraphs where you agree and some where you say otherwise, be very careful and confident. Again, pick things you are confident in talking about. And you may find it easier to agree with the statement rather than disagree. And if you do decide to use some paragraphs where you disagree, you must have a final evaluation paragraph where you sum up your ideas and you make it clear overall to what extent you agree, because that is the key focus in the question. Okay, so if you'd like now to pause it there, you can have a go at question 4, make a few notes perhaps if you'd like to, and try and complete that one. Right, once you've done question 4, obviously you will, in the exam, be turning a paper over and heading for section B, the creative writing. Again, once you do that, you need to check your timings, and you will have 45 minutes for section B. Now, I'm not going to go through that today, but you would at that point certainly check your timings, make sure where you're up to, and that you have enough time remaining to get yourself to question 5 on section B. So again, check your timings, make sure you're okay. Okay, well done year 11, and good luck.